I am introducing to you Kelsey Jo Starr, intern with the Secular Coalition of America, or former one.
Secular Coalition for America.
For America, yeah. She graduated Virginia Tech and will be studying political management at the George Washington University this fall. Last summer, she worked as an intern, and the only, well, let's skip that. She has a passion for politics, absorbing political news like some drink water. She hopes to one day become a professional lobbyist that advocates for church-state separation, and she also cares strongly about how many people getting as politically involved as possible, regardless of where they fall on the political spectrum. She is currently doing research at Virginia Tech about outside influence groups have on state legislation and systematic racism in voting. Give it up for Kelsey.
Are we good with the mic? Mic's good? Okay. So, hi. Like he said, I am here to explain to you that while despite some growing cynicism in my age bracket, politics are important to get involved in, and both in voting and in advocacy, as well as some good ways to do so. Just quick show of hands. You guys have heard me the past couple of days. Who's here's like, yeah, she seems like a good person. I might agree with some things that she used to say. All right, let's change that. I should probably start by mentioning early on that I am, and probably will always be, an unrelenting optimist. I have a really positive outlook on where things are going to go and what we can contribute to them. But I do understand that for some of you, there may be little I can say to sway you on that. I do hope that something I might be able to say might get you as optimistic as I am, that things maybe aren't as bad as they seem, or at the very minimum, we can work to make them better. So, I'm going to start by depressing you. Let's play a game. This is Republican Tennessee State Representative Micah Van Huss. In February of this year, he introduced a constitutional amendment that would make the Christian specified Christian God the supreme authority for the entire state of Tennessee over the state government. This is State Representative from Wyoming, Republican Eric Barlow. He introduced an amendment to the Wyoming Insurance Code that would give organizations called faith ministries certain exemptions from the tax code. Oh, just in time. Certain exemptions from the tax code. So basically, if you said that I don't want to pay into insurance because of my religious beliefs, you would get a financial benefit because you wouldn't have to pay it. And this is Democratic State Representative from Rhode Island, Charlene Lima. She introduced legislation to the state of Rhode Island that would require all dairy products to label whether or not they've been genetically modified, thus promoting false science. What do they have in common? They're all politicians, good. That's mean, and remember optimism. Ready? You're not gonna like this. In the 2014 general election, all three of these ran unopposed in their general election. While they may have had contentious primaries, when it came down to it, no one wanted to run against them. Now, if you ask, shocking, right? Unfortunately, no. Every year, a bunch of state representatives do run unopposed. Some are harmless or even produce good legislation, others not so much. Now, for me, this is enough of a reason to get politically involved, but others may require a bit more of a push, and that's okay. I'm going to go over a few more reasons why I believe you should, and then move on to some smart and easy next steps. All right, so first off, many issues that secular students face are political. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I personally don't care about what other people believe, more when they try to force me to adhere to those policies due to the law of the nation. The aftermath of Obergefell v. Hodges is a fantastic example of this. On my social media, I saw a lot of people saying, oh no, now my church is going to be forced to have gay marriages, and we know that's not true. If X and such Pentecostal church wants to have not have gay marriages or have them, I don't care either way. However, when the Texas Attorney General says to ignore the law of the nation due to his personal interpretation of what's right and wrong, that's when I want to start getting involved. So, yeah, I mean, having abstract discussions in your group is fantastic and should definitely be encouraged. But unless you personally feel that it's not our job as activist students to make the world better, you almost have to start getting political. Second, it's hard to see while we're here, but the work that we do today can affect future generations. I look at the modern day feminist movement as a fantastic example. Back in the 50s, feminists had to fight for things, 20s, 50s, things had to fight for things like the right to vote, the right to make marital rape illegal, the right to divorce without having to prove domestic violence, and these days, these are things we just accept as common. I can imagine a world where one day a woman has the right to say, this is when I want to have a child and this is how, and that's just accepted as common as well. And like I said, I honestly believe it can be, but it requires people like us to take the next first steps. Next first. All right, I want to take a minute to get rid of a common misconception about politics, and that's that it lives in Washington, D.C. When people say they want to start getting politically involved, the first thing I say is awesome. And then the second thing they say is, I'm going to start by looking at what's going on in Washington, D.C. Now, I'm not going to act like that's not important. Of course that's important. But there's a lot going on at the state level that, as I saw in my introduction, can have detrimental effects and often goes ignored. And the worst part, things at the state level can happen so quickly, you'll blink and it's gone. So state legislators a lot of times will only meet for either 30 or 60 days in a year, depending on the year. That means that in those 30 to 60 days, they have to write legislation, introduce legislation, have legislation assigned to committee, have the committee debate upon it, have the committee vote it out, given a first reading on the floor, have the floor debate amendments, given a second reading, voted, brought to the second chamber, go through a majority of that process again, and then have it brought to the governor. And a lot of these legislations are looking at the same amount of legislation as states like California that are open year-round. So they may be voting on 25 to 30 bills a day. So if you're not actively watching them, stuff's going to be gone. So if you want to work for the state government, you have to work fast and you need to work well. Now, this may seem like it'd be a deterrent for getting involved in state politics, but I would still argue that in many cases it's way easier than getting involved in nationally. First off, unless you live in like the Beltway part of Virginia or Maryland, Kelsey, do I live in the Beltway part of Virginia or Maryland? Do you know what that sentence means? No, then you don't. Then it's a lot closer, and so it's easier for you to get involved. Districts are smaller, so your decisions have more weight. They receive less daily communication, so they're more likely to respond to your correspondences, and they have less staff, so they're less likely to defer to an intern. So I actually argue at this point in time, it's better to get involved in state politics. And like I said, I'll go into more detail how later. I didn't say that. Finally, and I cannot stress this enough because people love to fight me on this. Ready? Your opinions matter. Each and every one of you, your opinions matter, and you are listened to. I cannot count the amount of people that have told me, and they're so proud, I'm not voting this year because politics is a big government machine and the man's going to bring me down or no one cares. Give me a break. Do you want to know the reason why a lot of these politicians aren't caring about issues that we as secular young people want to be involved with? A lot of times it's on us. I mean, myself included. We don't vote, and we sure as heck don't contact our elected officials enough. I had this opportunity through my Political Science Honor Society to work with one of my state senators. And one of the things he was saying at the end is, Kelsey, I want to talk to Virginia Tech students more. I want to reach out to them. I want to represent them, but they don't talk to me. Tell me what I need to do. They want to help us, but the reason he's saying that is there's data coming down from the state party that's saying out of the 1,300 students who live on campus, 64 were expected to vote. Not vote for him, 64 were expected to vote. Students of our age don't vote, and when they do, they sure as heck don't vote for the district they go to school. I'm going to take a minute to talk about why it's so important to vote where you go to school, which has been legal now for several years, but the rules as such are different, so make sure to check with your state board of elections or Stan Grover with the Freedom from Religion Foundation. So I'm going to use Virginia as an example because that's where I'm from. Virginia has 15 public four-year universities that receive state funding. Let's say a university wants more money to lower tuition or develop a new Office of Diversity and Inclusion, which can do a lot to help LGBT students. In a state like Virginia, which requires a balanced budget, this could lead to an increase in taxes for members of the entire state. Now, a person who lives in a district without a university or university-age students may not believe that this is an important use of their tax funds. So they're going to support candidates that are actively voting not to give money to universities. So in reality, only the representatives in these 15 districts are making your university and the students in it a number one priority. Why do you think Social Security and Medicare are such important issues no matter the party? Seniors get involved, and they really do. It may not seem like it now, but if enough people on both sides say, I want to care about abortion, I want to care about this, then people on both sides will start caring. We are starting to see this happen with immigration, slowly, mind you. All right. So now I'm going to move on into some ways to get involved with my political involvement checklist. I rehearsed that move for so long you wouldn't even know. So this is useful no matter what route you decide to go. And I'm going to show you guys there's two routes you can go. The first one is, supporting either a specific party or a candidate, and the second is supporting a specific issue, like separation of church and state. Now, and this is extremely important, If you decide to go the issue route, you must be nonpartisan. You have to listen to what Republicans say, you have to listen to what Democrats say. That's extremely important. I'm just gonna say this is where you start to hate me. American Atheists going to CPAC this year was an amazing idea. I loved it. Oh, really? I don't have time to go into detail as to why, but Nick Fish wrote a fantastic article, and I'm going to provide the link at the end of my talk. If you want to address a specific issue, but only address it from one party's perspective, you're going to deny yourself several potential opportunities. Second, no matter what road you take, voter registration drives are awesome and should be something your group does early and ideally more than once. These are important and a great venue to inform people about your issues or candidates. If you want to support a party, then this is a great way to work with local political groups on campus. If not, and this is you should write this one down, student governments love hosting these, and they work to establish a great relationship between your organization and the university and may help reduce stigma about your group. After the registration deadline, get out the vote campaigns are a lot of fun and also do a lot of good. Next, remember, no matter which route you decide to go, make and maintain your connections. Maintain them. Politics is not a solo project. It takes a lot of people doing a lot of good together. Projects become easier if your group isn't the only one working on it. There are other speakers at this conference that either have previously or will eventually go into this topic better than I can, so I'm going to leave that to them. Finally, and in my mind the most important, always be kind. I feel like that shouldn't be something I have to say, but you always need to be kind. Now, I'm not saying you have to be, submissive or passive or agree or even not call out someone they're being offensive. Far from it. Still be assertive, but do it in a kind way and present that vast knowledge that all of you have in a way that will get people on your side. All right, so let's say you decide to focus on a candidate or a party. Here are some basic ways to advance your efforts. Basically, the college Democrats or the young Republicans are going to be your best friends. Both groups love working with others, and they can help you find the resources you need to get started. It's also important that if your group really feels that this candidate is super important to the point where you're going to support them no matter what they believe on all issues, then help with their campaign. Do phone banks, put up flyers, do a fundraiser. If you just say, oh yeah, Faith Akers at Virginia Tech, hashtag Sarah Palin, and don't do anything about it, A, you're wrong, B, you're not going to get anything. Real effort requires real work. All right, remember how I said you're not going to like me? I have a misspelled political law up there that it's called Duverger's Law. Duverger's Law says that in a two-party first-past-the-post system, which is what we have, one person takes a district, it's always going to devolve into a two-party system. Third parties are not something worth supporting. And so if you are going to go this route, you have a limited amount of resources as a group. I do not recommend supporting third-party candidates. It's not going to work out. Support a contentious primary all you want. I would love a primary with 30 candidates on each end, all with different opinions. But third parties, not so much. All right. Now let's say, see, I told you were going to change your mind about me really quickly. All right, so let's say you want to support specific issues regardless of party. Here are your next steps. First, like I said earlier, it's super important to find other groups that are working on the same issues that you want to, and collaborate. It saves time, it saves money, and is a lot of fun. Like I said, other talks either have or will go into this better than I have, so I'm going to leave that there. Second, look at how all candidates feel about this issue and make it known. This is where you can start working with your local, state, or national lawmakers. The internet has provided several amazing resources, not about what candidates say, but about bills they sponsor and votes they cast. Nothing is secret anymore. Take that information and use it to your advantage. Scorecards, if done correctly, or voter guides, if done correctly, are a great resource to get your information known. So let's say that you decide you're going to support tax exemptions for churches. You can find out where all candidates feel on these issues and put something up and say, hey, is this an issue for you? It's an issue for me. Do you like it? Do you not like it? This is where candidates feel about it. Use this information when you vote. What? You're not registered to vote? That's so funky. Come to our voter registration table, and we've come full circle. What's important at the end of the day is that you get the word out. Why is this issue important? What can fellow students do about it? Who's going to help and how? Again, discussions in the group are great, but politics is all about communication to the masses. Building on that, issues like separation of church and state really benefit from a strong grassroots foundation, which is working from the bottom up as opposed from the top down. Get the word out and get people involved. Now, with people, lots of groups. Like I said, this is where you can get into your connections. Interfaith groups, small religious minorities, all things like that. It's a lot. If you'd be amazed in how fun it actually is. Most of you heard me talk yesterday about my interaction with the Center for Bioethical Reform, that abortion group that came on my campus. We had a large counter-protest with Women's Space, Planned Parenthood, religious groups that saw this as offensive. The Catholics were part of the people who helped us shut them down. We called the Catholics, I called them sobbing, saying that this was hurtful to me and I don't feel this is right, and the Catholics called that group because it was, and they said, this is not what represents our church, shut it down. So you'd be amazed on who your allies can actually be. Finally, get some lobbying in. Whether it's a school policy, a local ordinance, or even a state law. The ability to discuss concerns about laws with those who have the ability to make and change the laws is an important skill. Again, this requires kindness and civility. Moreover, it's a great excuse to work with those connections you established, either with other groups on campus or outside groups that already organize lobby days, or start a lobby day of your own in your local town or county and invite lots of groups in that. For more information about lobbying, just due to lack of time, I recommend a book called Citizen Lobbyist by Amanda Knief. And as I said earlier, being informed about how the person you are lobbying votes will make it easier for you to steer the conversation, so please do your research ahead of time. So now that you've heard me talk and you're so excited to get politically involved, where do you start? That's easy. The Secular Coalition for America, who did not pay me to make this talk. They're a great resource and they're a fantastic place to start. One of their staff members, Casey, he tables for about half the day each day of the conference. So his table is not there now, but it will be tomorrow. Be sure to talk to him. Ask what your state chapter is doing. The Secular Coalition has a chapter in every single state that does state level lobbying as well as a national chapter. So find out how you can help. They love working with secular students to get more involved. Find out how your group can help. Work with other groups as well. They are, in my opinion, the best source for getting involved in church and state politics. I said that. Be sure to talk to them right after my talk. All right. I have a whole slide. There's other organizations here. Americans United for Separation of Church and State does a very similar job that Secular Coalition does. I love them. Freedom from Religion Foundation does a lot of great stuff. He's in the back. And then other groups I may or may not have mentioned, be sure to check them all out depending on the needs of your group. Some of these you may not have to deal with depending on where you decide to go. Okay, this is my resources. I am going to go forward this slide, but then I promise to go back. It has some readings, some provided by the SSA, some not provided by the SSA, that are a good way to get started to help you figure out what you want to do. OpenSecrets.org is one of those websites I was talking about where you can find out who's not only who sponsors bills, things, but where they get their funding from. At the national level, that's a huge thing to know. And then finally, find out who your rep is and just start Googling them. You'll find stuff. Also, I didn't put it on here, but ballotpedia.org is a good kind of framework, and then they also have a lot of external links. And finally, I want to end on this one. These are talks that I have looked at that are after mine, both today and tomorrow, that I feel go into this issue in more depth if you want to continue down this route. They either deal with more outreach or they deal with, specific secular issues that maybe you want to learn more about. That one in red is a double session, so if you don't want to go for a 2-session, the one after that, well, you can go to that for 2 instead of going to that one. That's all I have. I know I sometimes talk fast, and I apologize for that. This is the first talk I've ever done with a thing like this, and I'm really excited you all came. And if you have any questions about my personal political beliefs, I would prefer you ask those after the talk. But if you have any questions about anything I went over, then I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you guys so much.